So at this point, you should have done a value scale on whatever tone paper you have. You can punch holes in the value scale, and sometimes you can overlap that on an area, and it will help you match what value you should draw on your paper. You should have your tortillon stump, both your white and black charcoal, and your kneaded eraser. So to remember to clean your eraser and get it warmed up, you just keep stretching it and use the heat from your hands. And if you need to lighten an area, you can just press it onto there like silly putty and pick up the charcoal and not lose any of the detailed work that you did. So you'll see when I flip this over, you can see even the texture of the paper in that bit that is stuck to the eraser. So I'm going to start to draw the egg. You can see a little bit of a shadow on there. I had actually started drawing and realized that the video wasn't recording, so I erased as much as I could, and I'm starting over a super light line. We do not want to see an outline around the egg. That's just so we know where to shade and where to stop shading. With this, you want to build up your pencil strokes slowly. You want to overlap lots of layers, and if your marks layer on top of each other, they should help kind of cancel each other out in the sense that they'll look more blended. Whereas if you try to get the value correct on the first pass by, it's going to be really streaky. So instead, little lines, little circles, little ovals, changing directions, all of those things on top of each other, and you won't end up with those little streaks. Instead, you have a nice smooth area like this. Another thing that can help is having a chisel point on the tip of your pencil, so you have kind of a wide angle, and then you still have the sharp edge of it that will help with drawing little details. Pay attention as you use your tortillon stump. It may make things smoother, but it also makes them darker. So it's great if you're trying to kind of make a higher value pop out. You can kind of darken in underneath the egg and then blend that area out, but it will definitely get darker there. So if you're going to use that on the actual egg, you want to start by shading it lighter than what you think you need it to be when you're done, because if you blend it with a tortillon stump, it's just going to get darker because you're mashing the charcoal into the tooth of the paper, and it's no longer going to have that paper color showing through, and that means that it will have less highlights within that shadow. So now looking at the white of the egg, there's a little speck of a highlight that's kind of bright. It's not really showing up much in the video, but you can see it on the printed photo when it's right in front of you. And then using a lighter pencil stroke, trying to build up the highlights around that little spotted highlight. So as I'm doing this, the texture of the paper is showing through a lot. And again, if I take the tortillon stump and I mash that white into it, it's going to be a more solid white, so it's going to be more extreme, so that area might get a little bit lighter. So you want to have paper showing through. You want to not mix the white and the black. If you notice, they don't touch. There's an area of the paper showing through on the egg. And just based on the color of your paper, you need to figure out, is the paper showing through closer to the highlight, closer to the shadow, or somewhere in between? It really just depends on how dark your paper is between black and white. And you can definitely see that the background is lighter than my paper color, so I'm going to have to put white all over the background and then have it come up to the black, having some paper show through on the edge of the cast shadow, but not ever mixing the black and white together. So now let's talk edges. There's no outline around the egg, but you can clearly see the edge of the egg right there compared to the background. So if it's a really sharp, crisp, clean edge, we call that a hard edge. On the cast shadow where there's an edge, but it's not quite as crisp and clean, we might call that a firm edge. So it's firm, it's a distinct endpoint for the shadow, but it's not crisp and sharp and clean. And then right there, where the paper color on this egg seems to be kind of coming through into the background. If you look closely, the egg and the background are the same value, so there's no separation. We would call that a lost edge. So lost edge meaning that if you were just to look at that one little tiny part of your drawing and isolate the rest of it, you wouldn't really see any difference between the two things. And then soft edges would be in that area where we go from one value and it transitions around to another and we're blending things. So you don't have to blend with your tortillon stump. It's just, again, one option and it will make things darker. But you want to think about the values that are going to be changing and what kind of transition and what kind of edge each part should have. So there's hard edge, firm edge, lost edge, soft edge. When you think you're finished, just see if it needs anything, any more hidden pencil strokes, something a little lighter or a little darker, or does it need to have a little bit of the eraser so more of the paper shows through?